I asked Dad. I wanted him to tell me my favorite story is how you ended up in the Army.
Oh, and I ended up in the Army.
Why'd you get drafted? Yeah, tell me why you got drafted. Well, first tell me how'd you get to Union College from Northern Kentucky?
Well, my football coach was a former football player at Union when Union had their football team at that time, and he had some contacts at the college, and unbeknownst to me, I had gotten papers from Union College to go there, and I said, that's one place I'd never go, because I don't know where that place is at. Looked it up on a map, couldn't find it. And one day he come to me and he said, I got something I want to talk to you about. He said, the coach, I've got in contact with the coach at Union College, and he'd like for you to come and try out for a basketball scholarship. Well, I thought about that, and I said, I didn't want to go there because that's on the other side of nowhere, and I've never been there, never heard of it before. And he said, well, let me set up a meeting with you, and you make arrangements to go down there and see the coach. Well, I didn't know anything about it, and so two of my friends, I got talking to them, Dick Hardy and Smith.
John Smith.
I can't think of his
John.
name. John Smith was my two close buddies. So John had a car, and he said, let's just go one day and drive down there and see what it's like. Not go down to see anything, just drive down there. Well, he took me down there, the three of us went.
That was an all-day trip, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. We drove down there, got up early and went down there. Went to Renfro Valley, through Renfro Valley, and went down to Barberville. I said, God, this is lonesome place. There's no reason for me to come down here.
Wasn't like the big city, huh?
Oh, yeah. The bus station was where Union, or the bank is here on the corner of Dock Street. That's where the bus station was. He took me down, we went around and drove through the college, and I didn't see anybody because it was in the summertime. And so I come back home and went back to school, went back and talked to the coach, and he said, he's really interested in talking to you. He's got a scholarship that he's holding. If you're interested and he likes you, he'll give you a scholarship. Well, I thought about it, and I talked to my parents, and I knew they didn't have any money that they could afford to pay for me. And I said, well, it won't hurt me to go down there. So I went by bus. Went and got a bus ticket, got on a Greyhound, and drove down there. And Coach met me at the bus station, and big, hefty fella, big roof. He's a former drill sergeant in the Marines. And
What was his name?
Bill Boyard. And he took me over to his house, over to college, and I met his parents, his wife, and I'm not sure whether he had any children or not. He may have had a child, but he was real rough. So he said I was going to spend the night there with him. And he took me over to the gym, and I put on some trunks and got out there, and I shot around, and there was the only one there, just me and him. And I was scared to death. And I wanted a scholarship, but yet I didn't.
Yeah.
And so we got through, went back, and we ate supper, before we went to bed, he said, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, I'm not sure. What do you think about it? And he said, well, I've got a scholarship I'll offer to you if you're willing to come down here. And I said, well, let me think about it. He said, well, I can't hold it very long. I said, because I got some other people I'm going to be talking to, but I'm giving you first refusal. Well, I thought back my mind, well, I can always back out after I get back home if I have to. He can't, that far away, he can't get to me. So I said, well, yeah, I'd like to come down here and play. And so it took me to the bus station the next day, and I went home. And so in September, got ready to go to school, and I'd already sent everything into him, and was accepted to the college, and I went down there, and I was scared to death. I drove the bus down there and took what I could on the bus for clothes, and not like they do now, you know, take
Right.
refrigerators and stuff like that. And all I had was clothes.
Use those.
So I finished my freshman year and my sophomore year.
Still the same coach?
Who?
Still the same
Well,
coach?
no, the first year was with Bolyard.
Uh-huh.
And so then Bolyard left and went to Florida. He resigned and went to Florida, and they hired this new coach, and his name was Wendell Beatty. And Wendell was, he was a funny fella. I didn't think he was much of a coach, but they hired him, and all the fellas that was there as freshmen came back as sophomores. Well, my sophomore year, I got a draft notice, and I had to go take my physical down in Knoxville. And so I passed my physical, and then they sent me a notice that I could get a deferment if I applied for it. So I applied for it and got a deferment for that year. And at the end of my sophomore year, I went home, and I went to the admission office, and I said, now, make sure you send my deferment papers in, because if you don't, they won't defer me for next year. So they said, we'll do it right this week. So I went home, got me a job, went to work, worked all summer, and at the end of, close to the end of August, I had to go back September 1st. And at the end of, I come home from work, get ready, thinking I was going back to school, and I checked the mail and had a letter from Uncle Sam. It says, greetings, you have been drafted. You're being drafted. You'll leave on September 15th.
15 days.
15 days. Oh, God. I called the college and I said, did you send my deferment papers in? They said, oh, we forgot that. And I called them everything but a white man. And told the coach a mouthful, told, what was the fellow that was my big buddy over there that in admissions when I came back.
Milt Townsend?
Milt Townsend. Milt, he talked to me over the telephone. He apologized. I said, that won't do any good, because I'm going to the Army on the 15th of September. And so that's how I got drafted. And my dad, he knew a couple of different fellas that was on the draft board. He called them and they said, well, we can't do anything about it now because if we do it beforehand, before you got your admissions, they could do something about it, but now they couldn't. He said, so you have no other choice.
So where did you report to?
I went to
Cincinnati Post Office, is that what it was?
no, over in Cincinnati. I had to meet at the bus station in Cincinnati on the 15th of September. And, there was a crowd of us there. I don't know exactly how many, but that's where we were sworn in. And they said, you'll be leaving on the train as soon as we get through. And so they put us loaded us on a train to the train station and took us to Fort Knox.
Okay. So you went to Fort Knox first?
Went to Fort Knox first, spent 3 days there. That's where we were inducted into the Army. And then from there, they put us on another train, took us to Camp Rucker, Alabama. That's how I got in the Army.
And you went through basic training at Fort...
Went through basic training at Camp Rucker, Alabama. And then they had training after basic training. Went through all basic training there, and then we went through advanced training there, and then they decided they were going to close Camp Rucker.
What year was that?
Yeah, I went in 53. It was probably somewhere close to 1954, somewhere in there, because I didn't get it out till 55. So I'd been there, I guess I spent about a year there. And they said they were closing the fort down and everybody would be transferred to Fort Benning. And I said, oh, well, that doesn't sound too bad. They said, but we're going on a field trip, a field exercise. The whole camp is going to go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and we're walking. Man, I said, well, what about our clothes? Well, your clothes, you pack all your clothes up in your duffel bags, everything you got. We'll take that to Fort Benning, but you will walk. And we started walking, and we walked for 7 days. Took 7 days to get there. And one of the things that I always tell is about the second day, we walked on the main highway, then when it started getting evening, they had places set up where they had tents set up. We had sleeping. So about the second day, some of us got worried about, there was a crowd always came to, we'd be on this big open field and people would sit there on the field on the side and watch you. I went to my first sergeant and I said, Sergeant, I've got to take a bath. And I said, you look out here, I've got a congregation out there, how am I going to take a bath? He said, well, soldier, this is your home. You do here, anything that you do here, you do at home. And if they don't want to watch you, they leave. So here we are, stripped down, taking a bath out of your steel helmet. And that's what I always tell Jerry. I said, here we had sitting down, we weren't right up close, but we were off, but everybody could see you.
Is that when I think you told me, didn't you burn your...
Burnt my helmet up.
Burn your helmet and had you basically scared they were going to catch it or see it for the rest of the time you were in the Army?
The rest of the time I stood with that burnt steel pot. And it was on the inside, couldn't see it. I put it on my helmet liner, and you couldn't see it. But if you pulled it down, and every time we'd have an inspection, I'd make sure I put something in it so nobody could see it. I never did catch it. They kept the helmet after when I got out.
Well, did you spend about time in the honor guard after you got there?
Right.
How'd you end up in that?
Well, they were looking for people to. They were going to start an honor guard there at Fort Benning, and we went out and in drilling. The first sergeant had to decide whether you was good enough to try out for it. Well, I got chosen to try out, and I made the honor guard for my unit. And we were pulled out, put in a separate unit. That's all we did. Spit shine. Everything had steel helmets, shiny steel helmets, buckles that were, boots had to have spit shine.
Do mostly funeral details?
Yeah.
It was right after the Korean War.
Yeah.
So.
We had, we'd go to military funerals about, well, there was, somebody would go today, somebody tomorrow, somebody the next day. There was that many of them. You didn't have to go every day. You couldn't keep your gear up to shape. You go one day, spend the next day getting ready for the next day. And so that's what we did all the time. For about the last 9 months that I was in the service, I did that.
So you were in from September of what
53,
year? 53 until
September of 55.
And then you went and you came back to school.
Came back. I got out on a Saturday, was discharged on a Saturday, came by bus to Covington. Dad picked me up at the bus station in Covington, took me home. And as soon as I got home, I went out and bought me an old car. And I'd already registered it at Union. It was to go there on the 16th.
So you registered while you were still in the
I was
Army?
still in the Army, yeah.
You went ahead and registered.
Went ahead and re-registered because I knew when I was getting out. And I was accepted back to Union on the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
They was expected to be there on the 16th, so I got home on the 15th, got up on the 16th, got in my car, went back to Union. I spent less than 24 hours at the house before I went back. and so that's how I got back to Union.
Did you went on the GI Bill and tell them
Went on
about
the
your
GI
college?
Bill. I didn't have to worry about a scholarship. I
Right.
never applied for a scholarship again. Because I knew the GI Bill would take care of everything.
But you went out to play basketball.
I went out to play basketball and they had,
You played basketball and baseball the first 2 years, right?
yeah, and track.
And ran track. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you came back.
Came back and I wasn't planning on doing anything. And Bill Townsend come to me and he said, "Are you going out for basketball?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't thought too much about it. But he said, we don't have much of a team now. We got a new coach coming in and got a lot of new players, and you ought to go out and try out for it again." Well, I finally agreed to, through his insistence, to go out and try. And 'cause I played some in the Army, but I didn't get along too well with the coach. because I'd been in the Army and I still had that military in me. And we had a young fella that was a freshman, and we were scrimmaging, and he kept, every time I'd go up for a rebound, he'd grab me by my shorts and he'd pull them down. That happened about 3 or 4 times, and finally got tired of it, and I walked up to him and stuck my finger up in his face, and I said, listen to me, you do that one more time, and I'll bust you your tail. He kind of grinned and laughed. So we went back down to the floor. I turned around, blocked him out of a rebound, and he grabbed my shorts and he pulled them way down. And I hit the floor, and I turned around and I hit him right in the jaw. Knocked him flat on his tail. The coach said, get out of here. I said, thank you, Captain, I'm leaving. That was my basketball career there.
But you played baseball then. But you played baseball.
Oh yeah.
You still played baseball the rest of the time you were there.
But he was my baseball coach too. He was coaching baseball too.
And you had no other choice to play. You was good.